On problem 15C, we're looking at the equation y equals 2/3 to the x. Comparing this to our y equals a times b to the x, we see that a equals 1, so our y-intercept will be 1. Our b is equal to 2/3. Because b is less than 1, this represents a decay function. If you repeatedly multiply something by 2/3, it's going to get smaller and smaller. Let's look at some specific values. And we can look first at -2, -1, 0, and 1. We'll look at more values later with the calculator, but this at least gives us an idea of some values we can put on our grid. There's our x-axis and our y-axis. Let's plug a couple numbers in here. If you plug in -2 for x, you'll get 2/3 to the -2. Remember, the -2 asks us to take the reciprocal, so we get 3/2 to the second. That's 3/2 times 3/2 gives us 9/4. 9/4 is equal to 2.25. If you plug in -1 for x, you get 2/3, or the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2 is 1.5. 2/3 to the 0 is 1. 2/3 to the 1 is 0.67. Okay, so now let's put a few of these on our graph and see if we can get an idea of what our graph looks like. Remember, we said this function would be decreasing, and we've got at -2, 2.25, at -1, 1.5, at 0, we have 1, that's our y-intercept, and at 1, we have 2/3, or 0.67. Notice that our graph is decreasing, not as quickly as it was in part A, and it is also approaching the asymptote of y equals 0. We can get more values later, but you get the idea of the shape here. Asymptote at y equals 0. We'll get a better look at that on our calculator. And intercept at 1. Now that we can see what the graph looks like, we can talk a little bit about its domain and range. Domain, as for all exponential functions, is going to be -infinity to +infinity, meaning that it goes all the way to the left, all the way to the right. Our range, remember, we go least to greatest. So our lowest value here, remember, it approaches 0 but never reaches it, so we don't include 0 in our interval, and then we go all the way up to infinity. Let's just pull up our calculator for a minute, make sure we know how to do it on the calculator. Go to y equals and enter the function. Y equals, make sure, because it's a fraction, that you use parentheses, 2 divided by 3. Raise that to the x power. Take a look at the graph. It should look very similar to ours. And then let's just check out some more data values to make sure we know what we're looking at. There's our 0.67. Notice that it's going down, and it's getting closer and closer to 0. And remember, even though it might look like it on our calculator or on our graph, it never actually reaches 0. Okay, let's check the higher values. 0, 1 is our intercept, -1, 1.5, -2, 2.25, and notice that it continues going up in that direction.